This is the Worker Phoenix 2.0, released in summer of 2022, right around when this channel came to life. But if you bought one after spring of 2024, you didn't just buy a Phoenix 2.0, you bought a completely different blaster. Today, we're uncovering one of the biggest silent revisions in recent Nerf history. We're going to compare performance, dig into the engineering, talk about the pros and cons of revisions like this, and why Worker's future with this blaster depends on transparency. There are a few reasons why I didn't grab this at launch. The fire rate was slow, the FPS for 3 stages and 6 total flywheels, it left a little bit to be desired, and at nearly $200 MSRP, it just didn't feel like it delivered. But as a Worker fanatic, I knew I would add it to the collection eventually. So when Black Friday 2024 rolled around and they finally dropped its price to under $150, I finally bit. What I wasn't expecting though was that. I was stunned. This thing was shredding targets like an LMG. It didn't match anything I'd seen in the original reviews. Every video I found looked like this. Slow, tame, and underwhelming. So naturally, I assumed something had changed. But the internet had no answers. That was until Maryland. Provided this is first and foremost our Blasting Impression series where we revisit blasters that are 2 years old and older. For those of you that might have brushed it off for the same reasons that I did, or that probably stopped watching one of the many reviews after you saw the rate of fire back in the day, or you're completely new to the platform, let's briefly do a re-overview of the blaster, if you will. So what is the Phoenix 2.0 really? Let's rewind and give it a proper Blasting Impressions revisit. It's a PWM controlled adjustable rate of fire 3-stage flywheeler running hurricane-sized wheels, a 130 series pusher gearbox, and a battery bay that fits everything from a 2S Li-ion to a 4S LiPo. Stock, it can hit 160 FPS. With my upgraded Neo Magnet 75,000 RPM motors on the 3rd stage and high compression corresponding flywheels on the 3rd stage, I'm seeing all the way up to 190 FPS. By the way, these mods are available at the Worker website, and I will have purchase links in the description. I also added 43,000K Neo Magnet motors to the 2nd stage for a smoother ramp up. Maybe it's overkill, but it's part of the fun. You got an adjustable dual steel bar stock. Some of you like it, some of you don't, but if you don't, there's an adjustable little peg here which you can remove and the whole stock assembly comes off, and then you could put any Worker compatible stocks onto that stock root mount, or I believe there's also some adapters in which allow you to use end strike stocks as well. In grip magwell, but it's not what you might be thinking as far as making the grip too thick. This is actually one of the more ergonomic in grip magwells that I've seen. The grip itself remains pretty palpable even for somebody with smaller hands. I have relatively large hands, but at Maryland Mayhem there was people with all sizes of hands and they were all saying the same thing. It's a very comfortable grip, very ergonomic, and they feel like they would be able to run this all day. It has a front detachable SMG style grip, which has been questionable by many. I personally never had a problem with it, but that's why our 3D print market exists. If you don't like it, if you want to design something different, it is detachable, so you could probably come up with a design that either adds a rail in lieu of the grip or adds a different kind of grip. Like I said, besides not having the traction that I probably want it to have, which is easily fixed by designing some kind of a TPU sleeve over, which I plan on doing, the grip is just fine, to be honest. And it does have the hex right here on the bottom that most Workers normally have on this part of the blaster for disassembling it and whatnot. It just looks and feels solid, as we have come to love and expect from Worker. Right underneath the stock mount here, you have dual sling mounts, so you can easily attach your single or dual point sling. At Maryland Mayhem, I was running my dual point, but I was running it 1 clip on this side and 1 clip on this side, and it was just actually perfect. So I was really happy with it. What is this, you might ask? We're gonna get to that as well as this, but wrapping up with the ergonomics, like I said, it's better than I expected. The vertical grip and well-angled stock make it very easy to control even when burst firing. mean, it's not a real firearm. It doesn't really kick back, but it could have a little bit of movement because there's a lot going on inside this blaster despite it being very compact. Once it is tuned though, it feels like a tool more than it feels like a toy. And for me, I'm a pretty big pro blaster enthusiast. As much as I like the silly gimmicky stuff, that's a good thing. Kind of brightened up the room a little bit because I want to show you some extra things that I thought was very cool. The blaster comes with this smooth non-friction barrel that goes inserted post final flywheel stage, and it sticks out just enough for you to be able to put this OEM pseudo flash muzzle on it. What I thought it was kind of cool, which I didn't even know it was going to work 100%, but then I found out to my satisfaction that it did, is you can actually fully remove this tube and you can install the proper 4-line P-car from Worker, and it fits perfectly. And believe it or not, the FPS penalty being a flywheeler with a full-size P-car, which till this video I haven't seen possible on any other flywheeler out there. I've seen smaller P-cars like on the Gonks and on some of our own nailer platforms. We usually just need about not even 10 or 15 millimeters of P-car. This is a full-size P-car, guys. In fact, this is a P-car from the Seagull, and this is a flywheeler. But it comes to show you that the linearity of the dart traveling through 6 flywheels versus 4 or 2 really straightens it out enough and gives it that momentum that allows it to take advantage of a full-length P-car. I thought that was a really interesting fun fact about this blaster. And yes, your attachments, including my RPM muzzle, fit fine onto the Seagull P-car as well. With that out of the way, let's dive right in. At Maryland Mayhem, fellow creator XfoxGames was hanging around nearby where my booth was located, and he took notice of me and a couple of friends test firing my Phoenix. He approached us and immediately said, "Hold on, that's not how mine shoots." In fact, I was so happy to finally see somebody else that was taken away by how different this blaster performed according to everything I had seen before. Until now, nobody had any clear answers or even a ballpark description of what was going on. For authenticity's sake, I asked XfoxGames to do me a favor, and when he flew back home and found some time, power up and fire his original Phoenix and his MOSFET version Phoenix, more on that later, get footage of each one respectively so that I can compare them for this video. Xfox was nice enough to dust his old blasters, and although only his MOSFET version worked and not his original, he's gonna look into that. He was able to get some footage, which I'm gonna play right now.
All right, so we got this is the Worker Phoenix. This is the MOSFET version. It is turned on to full auto, full power, full RPMs, all that stuff. And I'm using a freshly charged Ovonic 1300 3S LiPo. It's 60C, so it doesn't, or 50C, so it's not as bursty as some of the other LiPos out there, but that is what I am using. And again, I am set to just full 100% everything. Turn it on. Hopefully you can kind of see that here. Full auto. That would be single. That's full. No motor braking, nothing like that. And yeah, using fresh Worker Gen 3s. What kind of fresh? This one's kind of messed up, but fresh Worker Gen 3s nonetheless. And I'll shoot 2 full autos out of here. Here we go. That was quite quick. Faster than I remember. So got another stack here. Shot quite quick. I think yours shoots quicker than that, which is kind of crazy. The only thing modification I've done to this is just put the muzzle I've had on here for years and then stuck an end strike attachment back there so I can use my favorite stock. But yeah, had this thing for years, three and a half years, and it is shot great every time. I'll give you some video shooting it this way. Again, fresh Worker Gen 3s. Here we go. Still shoots really, really good.
Hey guys, it's Memorial Day Not Enough here. There's a very important piece to this puzzle that I didn't think hard and long enough when I originally created this video, and that's what that community post was about yesterday. But I'm glad that Joe at XfoxGames actually filmed his MOSFET footage, because it led me to dig deeper into the rabbit hole and find out about this obscure MOSFET offering that Worker had for a very limited time before ultimately it was scrapped, and then only the base model without the MOSFET was the only one offered. Now, the MOSFET enhanced Worker Phoenix 2.0 model was simply an Arduino controlled MOSFET equipped board that served as a brain to offer a different select fire experience out of the blaster. Instead of just pulling the trigger and having either a hand controlled semi-automatic fire or a fully depressed mag dump fully automatic fire, this kit would allow you to select all kind of burst fires between 2, 3, 4, I think all the way up to the capacity of your mag, which I thought is pretty cool, because if you have 18 round mag, you could dump 9 darts instead of the whole mag, you dump half of it. During this time, this was offered as a complete blaster with the MOSFET, offered by companies like Out of Darts and the Bu blasters and the Zen Duo blasters of the world. But the kit was also offered separately, if I'm not mistaken, from Out of Darts directly. And the kit itself had a couple of updates. The updates being needed primarily because of some bugs that were present in the original. Xfox covered this in this video right here. I highly recommend that if you're diving into this project with the MOSFETs anyhow. But during the time that the MOSFET version of the Phoenix came out, they offered an intermediate gearbox. So if the original gearing was about 172, let's just say, the gearing of this MOSFET version might have been somewhere between a 148 and a 160 ratio. However, this is not where these kind of pseudo silent revisions stopped. The biggest revision they didn't come until after the MOSFET version of the blaster had came and went. So basically, their 2024 Plus or anything they have in stock now, whether it's them or Out of Darts, I highly recommend you guys to contact those companies before ordering your blaster. I know AK Blaster Mod still has a couple on the shelf. There's actually quite a few companies that have these on the shelf. I know it feels like a chore to have to ask them to please test the blaster or see if there's any indication on the box of what kind of gearing is on this blaster, but it's extremely important, because I'm telling you, this video wouldn't even exist if this wasn't such an existential night to day difference from what the original Worker and even the MOSFET version was. So I'm thinking that the gearing on these newer blasters has to be somewhere between the 124 and 136 ratio range, because as opposed to the 7 darts per second that the original one got, or even the 14 darts per second, which is double of the original that the MOSFET got, I believe this version is getting about between 2.5 to 3 times the amount of darts per second, closer to 20 or 21 than the original. And like I said, that's more than night and day. That is 3 times the speed of the original, and that's just in rounds per minute. That's just rate of fire. I'm a big believer that some way, I don't know if it's a micro crush change on the cage, this blaster also shoots pretty spicy. In my chrono with the Seagull P-Car, I was getting about 160 on 3S. Without it, with just the regular tube, I was getting about 170, 175. And then when I upgraded to the neodymium magnet second and third stage respectively, this thing was hitting about 190s, almost pushing 200. So yes, in the grand scheme of things, if you have an open mind and you look at this as a lesson learned for Worker themselves, because they could have sold a magnificent product at the right price instead of initially providing what was perceived by a lackluster value, being that it was $200 and FPS was not really there, rate of fire was definitely not really there. After it's all said and done, we have a product that matches or exceeds its initial MSRP. But if it isn't for videos like this, the community will never know about it, and Worker sure as heck would have never benefited from this silent upgrade. Anyway, I just thought that MOSFET piece was important to add to this video, because if you guys get confused by certain sellers maybe that still have the MOSFET version in stock, and they're like, wait a minute, Not Enough was talking about this super fast Worker Phoenix 2.0 version. This one has a computer, but it's not as fast. It has a slower gearbox. It will all start to make sense once you digest all the contents of this video. And towards the end of the video, you'll be able to make up your mind a lot more easier, and things will start to make much more sense. After a few weeks of testing, comparison, and contacting Worker directly, we finally got an answer. Silent revision confirmed. Same name, same price, completely different internals. What's crazy is the truth was out there, buried in a Reddit thread called Worker Phoenix 2.0 Rate of Fire. 2 years ago, one user, Sakuya_0, casually dropped this line. The Phoenix has 2 pusher gearboxes, a 148 ratio and a 172 ratio. The 142 can reach 20 RPS with a 2000 milliamp 3S LiPo. Something that's substantial? Can we at least get a clue? Nope, no replies, no upvotes, and just like that, a product revision this important vanished under the radar. So now we know if you bought a Phoenix 2.0 back in 2022 and then again in late 2024 or even 2025, you did not buy the same blaster. And that's the problem. Silent revisions might give us better products, but they come at the cost of trust and transparency. Worker, your products are legendary, but this is your wake-up call. Marketing matters. And for the rest of you, if you can still get one of these, grab it. Or how we like to say here, get you some. At least before the improved version of the Phoenix is gone forever. Back to this thing that you guys were looking at earlier on the front of my blaster. This is a custom muzzle that I designed, which I like to call the RPM muzzle. RPM is a common military term known as rounds per minute. Here in Nerf, we usually say rate of fire. Basically what it does is it has a geared collar, which links up to a geared PWM knob below. This PWM knob replaces the factory one. And what this allows you to do is adjust your fire rate just by turning the front of the blaster. I found this to not only be so much faster than having to stick your fingers in between the factory muzzle and the PWM knob to adjust your rate of fire, but it's also just so much convenient because touching the front of your blaster is something you commonly do anyway when wielding the blaster, whether it's just to hold or stabilize the blaster. So turning the knob is just almost an involuntary action that feels natural, and I just like the way that it also enhanced the look of the blaster. We will have these available in the Etsy store if you do, and I totally recommend you do end up picking up a Worker Phoenix 2.0 in 2025. Of course, links to that will be down in the description, and I'll be making an announcement when they're finally up for sale. Another thing that I designed, guys, is these very low profile, but at the same time wide battery retention nubs. They work with a standard M3 by 12 millimeter screw that is inside, and they do have a tapered recess, as you can see here. I just like them because they're harder to lose, especially if you print them in a bright color. These also will be available in the Etsy store for your Phoenix 2.0 second generation, hopefully, blaster. Links to these two things essentially will be on our Etsy store with the links down in the description, guys. So the Worker Phoenix 2.0 finally earns its place in the Blasting Impressions series. Old name, new firepower, a silent legend exposed. I'm JT with Not Enough Nerf. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and let me know in the comments, would you buy a blaster if you did not know it was secretly upgraded? See you in the next one.